No. All right.
Peace, everybody. Welcome back to Rise of the Moors. Like I said before, we're going to go into discharging mortgages again, kind of like a recap of what we talked about last week, and some additional information. So I'm going to start with things we read at every meeting. Caveat emptor: Moors are men, upright, independent, and fearless, who care for their loved ones and follow the prophet to a destiny which is not uncertain nor unknown. They are fortified by the impregnable doctrine built upon love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. It is therefore folly at its greatest height for smelly culprits with their insidious plans to invade such a realm. They try and try, but their own bad planning brings on wrath upon their heads like the sword old Democritus had. Intrigue and scurrilous cunnings find a difficult path to travel within the ranks of the Moors. This is so because the Moorish movement has been well planned by Prophet Noble Ali, whose latent powers are abundant, unknown, and may be called into action as a matter of defense at any moment. Prophet Noble Ali knows the people within his ranks who are interested. They are the vanguard of the Moorish movement as the Moorish hordes increase here in America. All of the Moors are active, not passive. A member's interest can only be in one direction, and having traveled over the roads years before, the prophet knows where every member is along the road. A few feet below is another road where schemers work, where traders grin and copers bask in the sun. They think they're on the same road to Moors, but the Moors are high above on a pinnacle where they might view the destructionists as they fall for the last time and their bones bleach in the sultry midday sun. Hungry scavengers flying high, catch scent, devour, and leave crying out, caveat emptor, cast out the dead carcass. The Moors high above see the plotters, purveyors, the worst that exist, hurl themselves downward by their own works as the hawks await. We proclaim at every meeting. Islam. I am glad to know that I have a few faithful Moors among you all, and I desire for them to know the truth and the divine truth. There is a host of jealousy about me in the movement now by the same people of our side of the nation that claim that I was only a joke and unreal. But now, since they have found out from the government, officials, and the nations of the earth that this is the only sole foundation that all Asiatics must depend upon for their earthly salvation as American citizens, they work in every scheme that they can to disqualify me so that they may take charge of the situation. I have notified these things to you long ago in the past. It is through the faithful Moors that attribute to the movement of uplifting funds. The ones that paid their divine respect to me and the movement will be remembered. Excuse me, I did not do that. Sorry. Yes, it's to the faithful Moors that attribute to the movement of uplifting funds, the one that paid their divine respect to me and the movement will be remembered. That is why I'm calling upon all faithful Moors to increase their faithfulness to me, your prophet, and your divine Moorish movement. I need finance and I need it badly. Never before have I needed finance so badly as I do at present, so I can shove aside the discord that is facing the nation. It all comes through jealousy because of my fame and nobility. The nations of the world will not recognize the movement without I, the prophet, being head. It has been proven by my works, which I've performed in the past few years. To the members of the Moorish Temple of America, Islam. This is the instruction from your prophet, Noble Ali. Be faithful unto your forefathers' divine and national creed, that you'll be blessed for your good deeds that you sow in the flesh. The end of time is drawing near, so says Allah to his divine prophet, I, Noble Ali. That is why many hearts have been turned to stone. Many have eyes to see, but cannot see, ears to hear, but cannot hear. They still will be confounded of their sins. These are trying hours now, dear Moors, and every evil spirit is moving. They are trying every weak mind to overthrow and drag out the true foundation that has been laid and to cause confusion in the minds of the ones that do believe. But if you have the true love of Allah and the spirit of your forefathers, you fear not what you hear or see, or sacrifice the utmost of your very life to protect your movement and your prophet. Watch your enemies, dear Moors. Your enemies are the ones that speak against your prophet and ridicule him to the very lowest, and the ones that speak against your divine and national principles of your temples. Act accordingly, and Allah will bless you for your good work. Peace. Your divine prophet, Noble Ali. Prophet warns all Muslims to be read in every meeting. Hereby inform all members that they must end all radical speeches while at work, in their homes, or on the streets. We are for peace and not destruction. Stop flashing your cards at Europeans. It causes confusion. Remember, your card is for your salvation. Failure to obey these orders will be a severe consequence. We are for love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. And when these principles are violated, justice must then take its course. Any member or group of members who hold malicious feelings towards the temple or the prophet, or violate the divine covenant of the Moorish movement, will receive their reward from Allah for their unjust deeds. All true Moors will and must obey the law as laid down to them by their prophet. If they lose confidence in their prophet, they should turn in their card and button, cease wearing their turban and fez, and return to the state where I, the prophet, found you. This is a holy and divine movement founded by the prophet, Noble Ali, and if the prophet is not right, the temple is not right. The prophet, therefore, sending out the divine plea to all Moorish Americans that they do their part in protecting their prophet and the temple. This is an everlasting movement founded by the prophet through the will of Allah to redeem his people from their sinful ways. Peace. And of course, Prophet Drew Ali speaks to the nations. If you have raised pride and love your race, whoa, is that tipping over? Oh, that's you doing that. Sorry. Join the Moorish Science Temple of America and become part of this divine movement. Then you will have the power to redeem your race because you will know who you are and who your forefathers were. Because where there is unity, there is strength. Together we stand, divided we fall. Come, good people, because I, the prophet, sent to redeem this nation from mental slavery, which you have now, need every one of you who think that your condition can be better. This is a field open to strong men and women to uplift the nation and take your place in the affairs of men. If the Europeans and other nations are helping me, why not you? It is your problem. The Negro problem is being solved only as it can, and that is by the Moorish National Divine Movement. He didn't say temple. He said that's through the movement itself. So don't let no Moorish trying to say, well, you're not a Moor or a Moorish American or a Moorish American national because you're not a member of the temple. That's BS. If you have a nation, you must have a free national name in order to be recognized by this nation as an American citizen. That is what was meant when it said, seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, and all these things will be added onto you by the prophet. And one more. Let's see where. Excuse me. I have it highlighted, so just look for the highlight part. Keyword BAMSIS, there it is. So this is from Message to America. I'm going to skip a lot to this part right here. It is a sad weakness in us, after all, to oppose our fellow men for their religious beliefs. And if there are angels who record the sorrows of men, as well as their sins, they certainly know how many and deep are the useless sorrows that spring forth from such opposition. Possibly love and time will conceal our ancient hatreds in this regard and prove that in mankind tolerance is better than unwarranted opposition. Now that is very important because as we're waking up and we start to see like whenever they kill one of us, that is terrible, but it gets blown up to appear like it's something more than it is. You get what I'm saying? Like it's kind of like, so when you read the book Inquisition Reign of Fear by Toby Green, you'll see that the Europeans used to have statues that they would put humans in and burn them, and, cook them alive. And then once the Inquisition stopped doing that, they left the statues there as a reminder. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like they're not doing it as much, but they still put the fear there. You know what I'm saying? So they'll show like them beating us in the streets, and they'll post pictures online all the time just to remind us. But when we go outside, we see policy forces going back and forth, and they're not really doing nothing. You know what I'm saying? So since that human being who might be a policy force is not doing anything, just because someone else did, don't go up to him with some opposition for nothing. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of what that's saying. Because just like we're people, those people in those suits and uniforms and badges and stuff, they're people too. They got their own problems, stuff like that. So unwarranted opposition is stupid, right? Then, in connection with our religious aims and beliefs, we must promote economic security. The preaching of economic security amongst us is by no means as widespread and intensive as the circumstances demand. You see all these people talking about Islam and Drali's the prophet and join the temple. But what about economics? Like a lot of our people won't come to this because they see Rome as their provider. They work a Roman job, they get Roman money, and they pay their bills to Rome with Roman money. So how can we help them besides just giving them information? Economics, right? Excuse me. No other one thing is more needed amongst us at this time than greater economic power. And our people always talk about the black dollar, stuff like that. right? But they never talk about House Joint Resolution 192 or House Joint Resolution 5404 or Title 12, subsection 411 or UCC 3-604, and how we're heirs to the estate and they owe us. We don't need no black dollar. We need them to give us our estate back. Better positions for our men and women, more business employments for our boys and girls, and bigger incomes will follow our economic security. We shall be secure in nothing. We shall be secure in nothing until we have economic power. That's where claiming the estate comes into play. We're in administrative control of our resources, right? Because in the Quran it says, "Know ye, beasts, protoplasts, angels, ye spirits, that man is the Lord of the plane of soul and the plane of things made manifest." So if we're the Lord, we're the landlords, we have the right to our estate. If Noble Ali said, "Moors, you'll live up and down the Mississippi before any European got here," that means we're at least indigenous. That means we have a higher right of claim to the estate than these Europeans do. So why are we asking them for anything? How about we just make claim to it? Because in the state law, since we haven't making claim to it, it's considered abandoned. So these Europeans have been escheating our state, meaning there's been a lack of an heir competent enough to make claim to it, so it's considered abandoned. And then when we kind of get some type of consciousness and we say that we're indigenous and Native American, then we want to call ourselves Indian. Well, this ain't India, so you can't claim land here. And then when we do claim land, we claim land in Rhode Island. And Rhode Island's a corporation, so you can't claim land there either. So again, there's still a lack of an heir competent to inherit it. So the Europeans are still taking control of everything. A beggar people cannot develop the highest in them, nor can they attain to a genuine enjoyment of the spiritualities of life. That's where they put us on Section 8 housing, food stamps, all that BS. We can't, how can we possibly become our highest self when we're constantly going to a foreigner for our own food?
And they give you restrictions.
Yeah, and they give us restrictions. Our men, women, and children should be taught to believe in the capacity of our group to succeed in business. In spite of the trials and failures of some of them, trials and failures in business are by no means confined to any particular group of people. Some business ventures of all people fail. We have many men and women amongst our people who are qualified both by training and experience, who are shining lights in the business world of all the people. It is a sad weakness in us all as a people that we have withheld the very encouragement, support, and patronage that would have made some of our worthy business ventures a grand success. And worst of all, have joined in the condemnations of them when they have failed. And we see that all the time. Our people are like, look at that failure over there, talking about your own brother. Like, why are you happy about that? You can't say you want us to rise and then point your finger at the person who failed when they tried. What did you do? Right? Except in the case of actual dishonesty, discourtesy, lack of service, and actual unreliability, our business enterprises in every field of endeavor should have lulled of confidence, cooperation, and patronage whenever and wherever they can be given. Throw us a penny. Read carefully the doctrines of the Moorish Science Temple of America. It contains our hopes, aims, rules, and articles of religion. Every member should have a copy. In conclusion, I urge you to remember there is enough work for all to do in helping to build a better world. The problems of life are largely social and economic. In a profound sense, they are moral and spiritual. Have lofty conceptions of your duties to your countrymen and fellow men, to your country and fellow men in general, and especially those whom you deal. This includes such honesty and righteousness as will cause you to put yourself in the other fellow's place. Look for the best in others and give them the best that is in you. Have a deeper appreciation for womanhood. Brighten the hopes of your youth in order that their courage be increased to dare and do wondrous things. Adhere at all times to the principles of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. I'm your affectionate leader, and I shall continue to labor day and night, both in public and private, for your good, thereby contributing to the welfare of our country and its people as a whole. Your divine prophet, Noble Drew Ali. And us showing up to the State House yesterday suited and booted, in a peaceful manner, exercising our constitutional right to a peaceful assembly. That was an example of showing our children you can be something else. You don't have to be a rapper, you don't have to be a drug dealer, you can be a statesman, you can be a politician, and you don't have to be under their jurisdiction to be so. That's where the rights of indigenous people comes into play, where it says that the state, meaning, in different areas, there's different colonial powers claiming to be the state in different territories like Africa, stuff like that. So when I say the state, in quotations, it's either the United States or specifically Rhode Island and Gina Raimondo and all these people. The state's obligation to recognize who we elect or select to be our representative. Since we're the people of the land, they have to recognize us. You know what I mean? The rights of indigenous people is just a declaration that doesn't grant us rights. It's just these exist. You know what I'm saying? So it's a great study tool to know which rights we already have. So now, actually, BAMSIS is pretty important when we're dealing with this stuff. It's kind of like caveat emptor. So BAMSIS is an acronym that we were taught in the Marines. It stands for B, begin the planning. A, arrange reconnaissance. M, make reconnaissance. C, complete the planning. I, issue orders. And S is supervise, meaning inspect what you expect. So if we plan to, like when we plan to meet at the State House, we formed a plan, right? We said, okay, where we're going to be, where we're going to stand. That was arranging the reconnaissance. Then we physically went there, looked, was making the reconnaissance, right? Then C, complete the planning was kind of like, we printed the paper, the speech, stuff like that. The issue orders was like, okay, she was in charge of the camera. She said, you're going to stand there, you're going to stand there. That's the range.
You're going to read, everybody's going to stand.
Yeah, exactly. And then issue order did that, and supervise was kind of, we didn't really need that for that, but you know what I mean? So same thing with anything. If you're going to execute any rights, you might want to have a plan. You know what I mean? Like there's some mores that say, I got this credit card on my free national. Right. So we went to Citizens Bank to see what that process would be. And you pretty much can't get a bank account with them. Well, from this one interaction that we had with them. I'm not saying you can't, but from this one interaction that we have with Citizens Bank, they wouldn't allow us to open up a credit, credit card, debit card.
An account,
right? Yeah.
And we asked about loans.
Yeah. So we went there. The European lady, she went through the process. We said we're from Morocco, so she spoke down from Morocco. Then one of the questions was, have you lived in the United States for less than 3 years, or more than 3 years, right? For more than 3 years. I said yes, but it's a test. You can't live in the United States, right? Then it said, have you been on a student visa for less than 5 years? And I answered no. Then it popped up as, if you answer yes and then no, you're listed as a, what is it?
Foreign.
It's a resident alien.
Yeah.
So alien just means foreigner. So you're considered a resident alien if you lived there more than 3 years and you have not been on a student visa for less than 5 or something like that. Then she answered no to both, and she was considered a non-resident alien. You know what I'm saying? So I kind of figured out okay, so if you've been in any country for more than 3 years, the chances are you got their driver's license. Chances are you dealt with government, so you'd be considered a thing identified a resident. Right? So if you answer no to that, then you haven't been identified yet. But then when they asked for ID, it was kind of like a U.S. passport, refugee papers, which being no refugees, or a green card or something like that. But since we're the natives of the land, we won't have any of that. Right? So we kind of talked about how we need to go to the state, because Citizens Bank is a federal bank, even though they have to abide by Title 18, Subsection 1028, meaning, D3, meaning they have to recognize our IDs, but their system won't allow it. You know what I'm saying? Yes. So what we talked about was going to Gina Raimondo, speaking to the secretary or whoever's in charge of the state banking, and make those options for us. Because they're literally not an option on the computer. We can scroll down and choose what type of ID. They need nationality card listed, or even tribal ID. I'd be cool with that. You know what I mean? But it would still be the nationality card list used. It's just for their drop down, they can have whatever. Yeah, exactly. So when more say I got my nationality card, my national name on my credit card, how did they do it without submitting to their jurisdiction?
You still gotta have a social security number.
Yeah, because they asked for that stuff.
Yes.
So what did you do? So if you see any more doing that, I'm telling you, we went to the bank. Go for yourself and ask, do the same thing. You know what I'm saying? So either they submitted to their jurisdiction and gave them a social or whatever, or they did something else, but they didn't, show that step. They just put the pictures like, look what I got. So
Yeah, they did it for themselves and they keep
Yeah.
it information and not putting it out.
yeah. But that's all stuff you need to look into. Please, it's not
Hey.
gonna design anything. So like I said, that's part of, discharge and debt, stuff like that. Because then we go into voucher cards and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So now back onto the point. So last week we went over what a lodio title was. Wow, that's not. Excuse my typo. You see that on the camera? This is tell from.
Hello, Dad. You heard him? You heard him?
What happened?
You see it on the camera.
Console, bro.
No, I don't answer.
I'm gonna have someone read what a lodio is. And Black's Law Dictionary 4th edition. Anyone want to read a lodio? Anyone?
Volunteers, anyone?
Participation. No one cares. All right.
Give
I'll
me.
read.
Give me.
You want to read? You want to read?
I don't, but I will.
All right.
Speak along with this.
A lodio, because we need to know the difference between a lodio title, mortgage, and Indian title.
Just a load word.
Somebody online said I'll read it.
It says free, not holding of any lord or superior, owned without obligation or what is that?
Vassalage?
Vassalage of
Fealty?
Fealty, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The opposite of feudal.
Opposite of feudal. Now, what does the word feud mean?
You could feud it. You could fight it.
Can you
It's that
stand,
it can be argued.
stand next to the board because the camera's having a hard time focusing?
Sorry. So a feud means it can be argued, right? So the lodio said it can't be argued, right? So if a Frenchman tries to claim land in China, clearly you're French. Your claim can be argued. That's feudal. Does that make sense? Cool. Now, when most people, well, our people go get a mortgage, they think that they're owning something, huh? You go to mortgage, please, in the same dictionary. So the lodio title is literally the opposite of Indian title, which our people think that they're Indians. And then we'll go into that. That's not ownership as well. And we'll about to see what the mortgage is.
Because of two E's.
Huh?
Because of two E's. Mortgage. An estate created by conveyance, absolute in its form, but intended to secure the performance of act, such as payment of money and the like by the grantor or some other person, and to become void if the act is performed agreeably to the terms prescribed at the time making such conveyance.
So what does that sound like? It said it's a conveyance. What is a conveyance? It's a transfer. Conveyance is a transfer. What did it say?
Report.
So a mortgage is an estate created by a conveyance, absolute in its form, but intended to secure the performance of some act. What does that mean? What does that sound like? Such as the payment of money.
Sounds like a mortgage.
Oh yeah, but
Sounds like a loan.
It's a what?
Loan.
So it's a debt. So if you buy this off of me, right? Let's say you buy this off of me, and then I say it's $1,000, you're gonna pay me $1 per month. You don't own this until that payment is released, until you pay it. So if you get into a 30-year mortgage, you're on year 5, do you own that house? No. No, you don't. Then continuing, it says a debt by specialty secured by a pledge of lands, of which the legal ownership is vested in the creditor, meaning who you got the loan from, but of which in equity and fairness, the debtor and those claiming under him remain the actual owners until debarred by judicial sentence or their own laches. You claim the estate, right? The foregoing definitions are applicable to the common law conception of a mortgage, but in many states in modern times, it is regarded as a mere lien debt and not as creating a title or estate. So is a mortgage ownership? Now, can you go look up mort? What does mort mean? Mort is Latin. Dead, yeah. And what does gauge mean? It's also Latin. Someone said it. Pledge. Yeah. So when people say, "Oh, we need to get mortgages and own more property," what are they saying? We need to get debt pledges. Can you own something with a debt pledge? The contract is dead, and your body is the pledge. That makes sense? So you're actually giving them something. So if we're gambling, right? We're playing cards, and then let's say, we're playing Go Fish, right? And then we're gambling, and the money's $20,000, right? Dollars, and then I win, and you can't pay that $20,000. All right, well, I'll put a mortgage on your fez, and you'll pay me $1 per year, and if you can't afford that, then I'll take your fez as collateral. That's what a mortgage is. But yes.
Finish or I have a question.
Since we don't know we're the heirs of the land, we don't really know that we're gambling our land, because they teach us we're from somewhere else, and we are something else. So we don't realize when we're signing their mortgage or any one of the contracts, we're giving them permission to do what they're doing, because we don't know. But then ignorance of the law is no excuse. So why are you getting into contracts if you don't know how to contract?
Marvin Johnson from YouTube asks if this process can work for anything.
That's very broad. What process? Discharging debt? That's not specific.
Well, I'll get back to you if you can.
Well, remember, all law specific. So if you ask a vague question like that, it can't get answered. So, now, can someone read Indian title in Black's Law Dictionary, 5th edition? Because as we're learning and stuff like that, some of our people who think that they're black will realize, well, there's black Indians in. Oh, I'm black Indian, and you think you're native now, or you think you're Aboriginal. So anyone want to read Indian title? Black's Law Dictionary, 5th edition. Oh, let me show it to the camera just so they know we ain't playing.
That's good.
Black's Law Dictionary, 5th edition, Indian title. So we just figured out. Oh, you want to do it? Too late. Indian title, please. So, allodial is absolute ownership, right? A mortgage is a debt pledge. We already figured out you can't own something and be in debt to it at the same time. And it said it right in the law book. It does not create title to an estate, meaning that doesn't mean you own anything. So now let's go into Indian title. Since some of our people think that, oh, I got Indian in my family, that's why I got good hair. Yes, I got some Indian, native Indian, chiefs. I'm the chief's great grandson, and this is our land. And so let's look at what Indian title is. Yeah.
Claim of Indian tribes of land because of immemorial occupancy.
Now, can I stop you right there just for a second? It said a claim of Indian rights because of immemorial occupancy. Now, based on history, right? When did the term Indian get applied to our people? 1492. Is that immemorial? Doesn't immemorial mean beyond human memory, right? So if you can remember the date that Christopher Columbus so-called thought we were Indians, then is that an immemorial claim?
No.
No, it's not. Because it literally started in 1492. So how is that immemorial? You see how they're playing you? Because we don't know how to read? And then history and law must go together. Because if you didn't know history, then you would be like, oh yeah, that's legit. All right, you continue, please.
To occupy certain territory to exclusion of any other Indians. Northwestern bands of Shoshone Indians, that is U.S. City.
You have to read that. That's case law, so you can do research.
All right, so those are okay. Permissive right.
Now, wait, say that again.
Permissive right.
Permission, right?
Yeah.
And right. So you have the right to open up your refrigerator, don't you? So do you need permission from someone else to do it?
No.
So how can it be permissive right? Does that make sense? So they know our people don't know how to read, and they know our people don't read, and then when you see some of these Indian leaders here, they'll say they'll reference Black Law Dictionary, Second Edition. It doesn't matter what you've been taught, it matters what it is. So that it is what it is. So how is it your right, but someone has to give you permission? That's why when you read this book right here, Native Americans of California and Nevada by Jack D. Forbes, he'll tell you that when the United States gave Indians citizenship, they were still considered wards. And when we go to Black's Law Dictionary, 4th edition, wards of the court means infants and persons of unsound minds. So clearly, if you're claiming that your claim is immemorial, but you weren't called Indian until 1492, clearly you have an unsound mind. Clearly, if you're claiming to be Indian and this country was never called India in the history of this country, you clearly have an unsound mind. If you think that your ancestors were Indian, some foreigner came and branded them Indians, and you're still sticking to that claim, clearly you have an unsound mind. It's that simple, isn't it? Can you continue, please?
Permissive right of occupancy granted by federal government to aboriginal possessors of the land.
Now, what does the word federal mean? Contract. So it's not their government. That's why you hear Drew always say free national government, meaning the people are governing themselves. They're going to a foreigner to get permission. Because if you claim to be Indian, you're claiming that this is not your land. That makes sense? This is not Indian. Continue, please.
It is mere possession, not specifically recognized as ownership.
Can you say that one more time and louder, please?
It is mere possession, not specifically recognized as ownership.
So it's possession. I have this in my hand, but it's not recognized as ownership. That's why when you see stuff on the news about Rhode Island State Police kicking in Indian doors, saying how come you're not paying these cigarette taxes on my land, that's why. And then when you read the Joint Memorandum of Understanding between the Narragansett Tribe of Indians and Rhode Island Corporation in 1978, you'll see that they gave the Europeans permission to regulate their land. That is Indian title and mortgage. That's what the Negro leaders and so-called Indian leaders feed to us, so we pay their bills and they get the benefit from the European. Judas, right? So now, let's go back into what the Europeans know. The Europeans are winning here, aren't they? So if we desire to win, shouldn't we know what the winners know? This is what the Europeans know. They know we're not Indian. And if you go to the Secretary of State's website, sos.ri.gov, I'm pretty sure, you go to, I'll just do it. Let's just do this. I'll do it. Ready? This is what the Europeans know about us that we don't know about ourselves. Let's go ahead and connect to the interwebs. All right. Go ahead and Google.
What's the site?
Secretary, sos.ri.gov. And let me know if you loaded it. It's not what I want to open at all.
What's that website?
SOS.
Alright,
Yes.
downloaded from. One more time. sos.ri.gov.
GOV, yes. Wow, it's really slow. Right. So, Secretary of State right there, Nellie M. Gorbea. Let's go ahead and click on that. Let that bad boy load up. Yeah, for real. Probably because we're all on it.
Well, I'm not on this library.
Yeah. Don't get on it. All right, so here's the website, right? I'm not making it up. Civics and education. Let's go ahead and click on that. See what happens. Scroll down. Come on down. Ernie Bob Jr. Right?
You guys.
Civics and education. RI history. Notice how civics, history are together, right? Click on that. Go ahead and click on it. Let's go ahead and see what happens. Let's see. Boom, boom, boom. The name was officially applied to the island March 13, 1644. And these words, Nick, be henceforth called the Isle of Rhodes. They're talking about Newport. So, civics and education. Then scroll down, go to Rhode Island history. So the Europeans admit that they changed the name of the land. And we already know the three prominent at law, right? Status, jurisdiction, and adjudication, right? So under jurisdiction, you have persona, the humans, right? Subject matter, classification of law, and then territory. So they renamed the land so that they can claim territorial jurisdiction, and they admit it right on Secretary of State's website. Right? Then the name Isle of Rhodes is found used in legal documents as late as 1646. We already know Roger Williams established the Providence Colony 1636. In 1663, the colony of Rhode Island and Providence Plantations, the colony, it's a colony of Rhode Island Providence Plantation, was adopted in the royal charter granted by King Charles II of England. So, can any Indian, let's say we were Indian, right? Let's play their game. Can any Indian be a citizen of Rhode Island if they admit that Rhode Island's a colony? So why these Indian leaders lying in your face? Also, salute. Let's just scroll on down and see what that say about the Indians. Scroll on down. Indigenous people mistakenly, what does that mean? They're not named Indians in quotations. What does that mean? We ain't Indians. By Columbus were the first inhabitants of present-day Rhode Island. What does that mean? Originally, that's not called Rhode Island. Mm-hmm. So what did the Europeans just admit to you? Hold on, one person at a time, please. What did the Europeans just tell you in your face? That they made up what name? So they admit that they changed the name of the land. And what else did they admit?
They made a mistake by calling them Indians.
So they know that we're not Indians.
They admitted that they took the land.
Right. So didn't Uncle Charlie say, he's going to force the Europeans to tell the truth?
Yeah.
Are they not telling the truth? So if the Secretary of State, sos.ri.gov, civics and education, Rhode Island history, if they can tell you that you're not Indian, why are these so-called Indian chiefs, and I'm a Sagamore, my grandfather was King Philip, his name ain't Philip, and I'm the great generation, and this is my tribe, and you can't be part of my tribe unless you have this Indian number. How can they tell you that you're not Indian? Right? And in the law book, it says Indian titles not ownership, but they say join this tribe, you get your Indian rights. And then they have you marching up and down, Brown University saying, this is our land, beating the drum, wasting your time. Right? Google it. Let's see. So, yeah, there's the proof. This is not me making it up. This is on sos.ri.gov. Powered by Google. And continuing, right? I went over this document in detail called, the video is called, I think, Exposing Dirty Moors or something like that. But this is the joint memorandum of understanding between the Narragansett Tribe of Indians, which they will admit in this document that is a Rhode Island corporation, meaning they're not the people of the land, it is a corporation. And they give their rights to the Europeans because they don't own the land. So feel free to pass it around and read it. So that's what the Europeans know, right? They know that we're not Indians. So therefore, when we're dealing with estate law, we're incompetent, so we can't claim anything. Does that make sense? So what the Europeans do, since everything's already paid for, since it ain't their land, they know about this right here. So write this down, please. Title of subsection 411 and Uniform Commercial Code UCC 3-604. So what they do is, we're colonizing North America. Virginia colony 1607, we got our freedom. Then 1610, the Powhatan Wars. Also around early 1600s, the Beaver Wars up in the Great Lakes area. Then 1675, the Great Swamp Massacre and the Methcomic War, which they call King Philip. Then late 1600s, the Pontiac Wars, which is a continuation of the Beaver Wars in the Great Lakes area, Chicago. Right? Then 1712, since the Diggers and the Indians keep rebelling with all these wars, Willie Lynch comes in, take the mind of the body. You tell these people, y'all are black. You're from somewhere else. You tell the rest of them, y'all are Indian. Right? So to make up for the difficulty in numbers, you tell them, y'all were shipped from somewhere else. You tell the Indians, we killed your ancestors, when they're really the blacks. All right? That makes sense? Take the mind, leave the body. So you tell the black people to get mortgages. You tell the Indians they got Indian title. While we discharge all of that on their estate. Does that make sense?
Sounds about right.
All right. So that's what the Europeans know. Do you want to go into, oh yeah, also this right here. And when you're dealing with these, when you're dealing with all of this, you're dealing with the Constitution, which Noble Darley said to enforce. Dealing with Article 1, Section 8, and Article 1, Section 10. Article 1, Section 8 says, Congress can only coin gold and silver as money. And Article 1, Section 8 states that only gold and silver coin can be used to pay off a debt. So when we get into these, which it says it's a lien, right? Which is a debt, right? What do they ask you to pay this with?
Yeah.
Huh?
Debt notes.
Yep, debt notes, FRNs. And then when you do research on the Federal Reserve, it is a private bank. You can look up their secret meeting on Jekyll Island off the coast of Georgia in 1910 up to 1912-ish. And then the Federal Reserve Act of 1913, which they created the Federal Reserve. Then when you read Constitutional Interpretation, second edition, on page 11, it will say in the Constitution and granting Congress to do nothing like the Federal Reserve or the Federal Reserve System or the FBI. You know what I'm saying? That goes back to 1860, 1861 when they stopped being government, right? Then 1862, Civil War broke out because Europeans were coming in, infiltrating, taking over stuff, right? Then they assassinated Abraham Lincoln in 1865 because he set up the Bureau of Refugees, Abandoned and Freedmen to help to restore us back to our nationality and give us the 40 acres and the mule and enough finance for us to own a bunch of stuff. Then relate that to the rights of indigenous people today. Then after they killed him, they established the fake 14th Amendment, which they teach us, and these Indian leaders teach us, and these black leaders teach us that made us U.S. citizens. But how are we citizens of this colony if we're the people of the land? Does that make sense? So they created that fake 14th Amendment to claim jurisdiction over us, just like they renamed Narragansett to Rhode Island so that they can claim jurisdiction over the land. And then our dumbasses, since we don't know who we are because we go to European schools, they teach us that we're something else. So then when they say, what are you? They say, oh, yeah, we're a Rhode Islander. Because we don't understand the concept of nationality, bloodline, consanguinity, and people aren't crayon colors. That is that. Tracking? And then when you read the Rex 84 plan, it talks about Mr. Rothschild's energy discovery, and then that's what they did with the fake, cash for gold thing. They said that people will trade their real wealth for a promissory notes, right? And they've been using that to control our energy, saying, well, your credit score is not high enough for you to get this flag right here. You need 800 credit score, right? Meanwhile, this is our land, but we don't know it. Is this making sense?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So the blacks get this, the Indians get this, the Europeans know we're not Indians, the Europeans know we're not black, and they discharge their debt, and here's proof. Let me turn the lights off. Do we all know who Gina Raimondo is? Yeah. All right, let me just get a picture of her real quick. It won't be the one that I sent you. You already know what I'm talking about. Yeah, I know, right? Gina Raimondo. She is the governor of the Rhode Island colony, which we just clearly established as a colony, right? This is what she's like. That's Gina Raimondo. Now, again, this is not an attack on her at all. I'm just showing you what she looks like. She looks like a European, doesn't she? Right? Okay, cool. Let's go to the definition of American. This is from Noah Webster's dictionary, American Dictionary in the English Language, 1828. It says American, in the adjective sense, it's pertaining to America. Interesting. American, noun, a native of America, originally applied to the aboriginals or copper-colored races found here by the Europeans. Then it says, but now applied to the descendants of Europeans born in America because we don't know who we are. So then we start calling everyone Americans, right? Now, it's just said copper tone, right? So let me show you what copper looks like. Copper. Now, let me go back to this person. Is that person copper tone? No. So is she an American? No, she's not. Now, we know people are identified by their skin tone. We know that. We're not stupid, right? But since these Europeans like playing color games, well, by definition, you're not American, right? Mm-hmm. Then by bloodline, since your forefathers and foremothers are from Europe, you're damn sure an American. And then since you ain't mixed with the Aboriginal people, then you damn sure an American. But then sometimes you'll hear like a lot of Europeans, so it's always their grandmother. And it's always Cherokee. So my grandmother's Cherokee. Well, if she's Cherokee, then what's the Aboriginal name of the Cherokee? And they can tell you it's on you. And then if you're indigenous to the land, what's the name of the land? Damn sure in Rhode Island. You know what I'm saying? So is this person American? Absolutely. No, she's not. So that means she's not an heir to America, right? No. Okay, so let's look at her mortgage discharge. Let's just check it out, see what it says. Let's just check it out real quick. So I got this information from Google. You can actually go to if you go to the City Hall in Providence, downtown, so-called Providence, Kennedy Plaza, go to Recorder of Deeds, you can punch in anyone's first name and last name and look up anything because it's public information. You can also do the same thing online. Providence Recorder of Deeds. I don't know why it's helping then. Then you go to this website, i2f.uslandrecords.com /Providence. Click on it. And then you can literally type in anyone's last name. I don't know why this is zoomed in.
No, it's good.
There we go. No, it's i2f.uslandrecords.com. That's specifically for Providence. And you can, like, if wherever you are, just search, whatever, if you're Lowell Land Records or whatever, Lowell Recorder of Deeds, and then, yeah. So I punched in her name. I'm not gonna do it here because I already have it. Right, and then here's the document, huh? So again, who's the American? Who is copper tone? Rihanna or this person? Rihanna. And so Rihanna's the American, right? Okay. And this person's definitely not, right? And then we look up the definition of black in that same dictionary. You'll see black means pale. So who's the black person? Rihanna or this person? This one, right?
Anne Hathaway spelled.
Oh, that's her name? Anne Hathaway? Anne Hathaway. So she's definitely not American, right? So now, so this is Gina Roma. Actually, I'll just do it online. Wait. Name search. Mondo, Gina. Let's search that real quick. Mortgage discharge. Imagine that. Let's go ahead and click on that. Yeah, two of them. Meanwhile, all people getting 30-year mortgages, right? Right? Struggling to pay, paying rent, struggling, right? Section 8, struggling. Oh, let me see. I don't think this one's it. Let's go to this one. Yep, here it is. So let's see. So the mortgage, there's two mortgages here. One was in 2009, one was in 2013. And this discharge in 2012. So release of mortgage. Wait, that's not it. Here's from the website, release of mortgage. This is what I screenshotted. Make that bigger. Zoom again. So this is what Europeans do on our land. So, you know, we keep arguing, you know, white supremacy and they white privilege and all that crap. First of all, they ain't white. Second of all, they're exercising our privileges since we won't. When they're really our rights. Exactly, white power. And then we go to Black's Law Dictionary 4th edition and look up the definition of free white person. They'll say Europeans more or less intermixed. You know, Scandinavian, Iberian, Moorish descent. So they're only considered white if they're mixed. And then they'll say it does not mean European race, Caucasian race, or Indo-European races. So they're not white people. They started calling themselves white in 1870 when the KKK went on the crusades in the South to promote this thing that they're white now, right? So they're not exercising white anything. They're escheating, they're executing conversion principles and birthright theft because clearly they're not Americans. So clearly they're not heirs to America. Well, since we won't exercise our right of claim because we don't know, our estate's considered abandoned, so they can do whatever they want. So this is what they do. So this is document number 000-35282, book number 10245, page number 335, MERS MIN number 1000555024286287, customer number 1, service number 89045, RL1, loan number 9000, right, 000-651318, release of mortgage, deed of trust. Did I say paid? It's a release. Then when you go to UCC 3.604, it talks about how a creditor can discharge any debt. Now, since they're European friends, they're in cahoots with each other to say, okay, keep these niggers dumb, keep these denationalized Moors thinking that they're black and Indian, and then we'll work out this deal where you accept to take our private commercial paper, and you don't have to work as hard as they do to pay off their debt because we're in this game together, and we know we're both foreigners, and we know we need to keep them mentally suppressed so we can administer their estate. Then we'll throw in diversionary arguments like racism to keep them away from the genocide and the terrorism so they can't bring us to international court. Tracking? Cool. Know all men by these present that the undersigned for and in consideration of the payment of indebtedness secured and the cancellation of all the notes, doesn't say money, it says notes, thereby secured in the sum of $1. What did I just say? So they canceled the mortgage for $1. And all people going to 30-year mortgages, most mortgages like $200,000, right? They say, I'm just going to discharge this because, you know, just going to discharge Fred. Huh?
The answer was like, there was a certain time that he was giving brothers and sisters houses for $1.
Under a privilege. I guarantee. I bet you it wasn't no allodial title. He wasn't handing allodial titles because they can't draft any allodial titles because they're not the owners of crap. I hear what you're saying, but lawfully, BS. Remember we just read the beggar people will never reach their highest degree of spirituality if they're constantly begging, waiting for handouts. I hear what you're saying, but there's the allodial side that we need to deal with too. That's all good, great. You look good to the people, but for the people who do know, that ain't nothing. You know what I'm saying? So I hear you, but you know what I'm saying? So they canceled, it doesn't say paid, canceled all the notes for the sum of $1 because when you're dealing with contract law, it has to be substance for substance, it has to be an exchange. So yeah, take this $1 and get rid of that $20,000 mortgage. No big deal. So they have a better quality of life because they're paying $1 for a mortgage. For a mortgage to be released. Tracking? The receipt whereof is hereby acknowledged, is hereby remiss, release, satisfy, convey, and quit claim onto straw name Andrew K. Moffitt and Gina M. Raimondo, tenants by the entirety, heirs. Yeah, go ahead, choke. Heirs. Oh, wait. Let me think. Sometimes I know. Hold on. This is America, right?
Yeah.
All right. Let me read this definition again because I might be confused on something. Because last time I checked, America.
Maybe she was an heir to the United States.
There you go. And it's not her, it's a straw name. See that? The straw name. Heirs, legal representatives, and assignees, and assigns all right, title, interest, claim, and demand whatsoever it may have acquired in, through, or by certain mortgage / deed of trust, bearing the date, boom, 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 and filed for the record in the land records of Township of Providence City. And then when you look at the seal of Providence, it'll say founded 1636, which means what? It's not the name of the land because the land existed prior to 1636. Then it'll say incorporated 1832, which means what? It's a corporation and not the land. See how they're not claiming the land? In Providence County, state of Rhode Island, which is what? A colony. As instrument number 00004334 in book number 9344 at page number 163 on February 23rd, 2009. Property addressed 525 Elm Grove Ave, Providence, Rhode Island. Is that a geographical landmass?
No.
Nope. Watch this. Let me show you something. This is what we would claim as heir. This we claim because the name of the land is definitely not Elm Grove Ave. You can put that on any street, anywhere, anytime, right? This causes confusion all in the records. So this is what we claim. I'm hoping this is making sense to all of y'all. Let's go to Rhode Island. Maps. It might load, right? Cool. So let's say we want to claim something. Why is this so dumb? That is not what I want to happen. Oh, look. Equidnate. Let's just zoom in. All right. Let's say we wanted to claim this park right here, whatever this is. Sports complex, right? Click on what's here. Longitude and latitude. Then it'll give you the longitude and latitude right here. That is not the name of the street or the name of the park. That is the geographical location. So if you got a map and you want to track where this property is, you know, you plot your points, how to read map, writing up. I went over this last week. You get your map, you get your protractor, and you figure out where this place is, and you get your compass, and you start walking. And then you follow the point, and then, oh, look, I'm here. Tracking? That makes sense? You can't put Elm Grove Ave on a map and then figure out where it is, because it's based on math. That's why in masonry you'll see this. The compass in the square. The compass, right, in the square. Right, measurement, and then you'll see 7, which is G, right? So you'll see G, which is the 7th letter. Geography, Gaia, right? Protractor, measure, map. Right? Did I bring it? I didn't bring it. But on my Random House dictionary, a lot of the old dictionaries, they'll have a map in the back, and you'll see it at the top. They'll have like the North Pole. Right? They'll have these circles that have lines. They'll have numbers. So it'll be like 70, 74, degrees or whatever. That's where this comes into play. That makes sense? And that number comes into play. So then, it'll be like Rhode Island right here or something like that. And then I'll have another line. You know what I mean? My drawing is great, I know. Thank you. And I'll have like 30, 34, 35, or something like 37, something like that. So you plot, okay, so it's like, 34 to 30. Should be like, let's say it should be the 20 or something like that. 20, 24, 27. So you kind of have to calculate. So it's about 29 degrees, north, and then about 72 degrees west, right? So it'll give you right there. That'll be the point. You know what I'm saying? That makes sense? Yeah. Excuse my scribble, but that's how you figure that out. That's how you get right there with a map. You don't do limited lane, because that ain't on there. That makes sense? Yes. Great. Because that's how we claim the land. So that's important, right? Continuing. In testimony whereof, the said Mortgage Electronic Register System, Inc., acting solely as nominee for Homestar Mortgage, Inc., its successor and assignees has caused these presents to be signed by its Assistant Secretary dated April 10, 2012. Mortgage Electronic Registration System, Inc., acting solely as nominee for Homestar Mortgage, Inc., its successors and assigns, received Providence, received for record April 23rd, 2012 at 2:02 and 30, was that milliseconds, PM, document number 000035282. John A. Murphy, who's also the city tax collector, and he's still the current recorder of deeds. Then signed by Abigail Rowe, that does not sound American like an American name to me, Assistant Secretary, State of Florida, County of Duval, on April 10th, 2012, before me, Laura Jean Golden, a notary public, personally appeared Abigail Rose, who proved to me on the basis of satisfactory evidence to be the persons whose name is subscribed to the within instrument and acknowledged to me that she executed the same in her authority, capacity, and that by her signature on the instrument, the person or the entity upon behalf, of which the person acted, executed the instrument, I certify under penalty of perjury under the laws of the state of Florida, all caps, that the foregoing paragraph is true and correct, witnessed by my hand and seal, scribble, Laura Jean Golden, my commission, blah, 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 blah. See that? Does that make sense? Any questions? Was that clear? Did I lose anyone? Are you sure? To speak for everyone when he says that.
I have a question from online. Somebody asks if they are in a joint mortgage with someone, like a spouse, can they go about discharging debt on their own?
Well, look at this. It says Andrew K. Moffitt and Gina Raimondo. Gina Raimondo is the governor, and her husband is Andrew K. Moffitt. He's the first gentleman. And it looks like they just did that.
This might be the other person.
Yeah. Now, let me see right here. Let me see if... So you see how it says... So this is the document I just clicked on. See how it says Gina Raimondo, the grantor? What does grantor mean? Creditor, right? Creditor, grantor, creditor, the creator of the trust, right? And look who's listed as the grantee. What does that mean? Administrator, the fiduciary, the person who has the debt. So remember, the grantor can also be the beneficiary. So Gina Raimondo is listed as the grantor, and her husband. So both right there. Now, there ain't no grantors on this estate because it's in Europe. But see how it looks as grantor? Gina Raimondo, grantor. Her husband, grantor. The mortgage company, administrator. Who does the administrator get the power from? The grantor. So if you're listed as the grantor, then don't you tell these people to discharge that debt? Per UCC 364. Now let's look into that right now. Let's go ahead and Google that real quick, which is on the public record. Google Uniform Commercial Code that's dealing with commerce, right? 3-604. I did not type any of that in. Thank you for telling me. I appreciate the love, everyone. All right, discharge by cancellation. Go ahead and check that out. Now, since the Constitution says only gold and silver can be used to pay off a debt, and then before we go into that, let's go into this. Since only gold and silver per the Constitution, Article 1, Section 8, and Article 1, Section 10 says only gold and silver can be used to pay off a debt, and then Title 12, I spelled title all great. Subsection 411, let's just read that really fast. It states, Federal Reserve notes to be issued at the discretion of the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System for the purpose of making advances on Federal Reserve banks through the Federal Reserve agents as hereinafter to set forth and for no other purpose are authorized. Said notes shall be the obligations of the United States. Now, Black's Law Dictionary can go look up the definition of obligation. So it said Federal Reserve notes are the obligation of the United States, right? Right. And then when you look up Title 28, Chapter 6, Subchapter 176, Subsection 3002, number 15A, it says the United States is a federal corporation, a contract corporation, right? Just obligation. It should be highlighted in there. Obligation. There's many pages with the definition of obligation. So read the highlighted ones.
A word or board meaning, the particular meaning intended to be gained by consideration of the context. This whole thing, or
I'll read it. So, I'll read it. You wanna? Black's Law Dictionary, 4th edition. Which, when you go to like the law library, when you go to downtown, who went to the State House yesterday? They had Black's Law Dictionary in there, didn't they?
One.
Right, but they had it, right? 10%. They had it, right? Yeah. And then they have it in Superior Court, right? And where all these Europeans be at, right? Let's see. Obligation, a word of broad meaning, and the particular meaning intended to is to be gained by consideration of its context. So based on context, right? As legal term, word originally meant a sealed bond, but it now extends to any certain written promise to pay money. So the Federal Reserve notes is the United States promise to pay you money. And then we look at money. Money's gold and silver coin, right? Continuing, what else does it say? A tie which binds us to pay or do something agreeably to the laws and customs of the country to which the obligation is made. Obligation is 1, legal or moral duty as opposed to physical compulsion. 2, a duty incumbent upon an individual or a specific and limited number of individuals as opposed to a duty imposed upon the world at large. So they're telling you that Federal Reserve notes is private commercial paper, and their private owners owe us. That makes sense? So if you have any of that in your hand, that's their promise to give you gold.
And it says, so I'm looking at the second edition, correct?
Yep.
And the obligation, and the second definition is the binding power for a vow, promise, oath, or contract.
Mm-hmm. It's a promissory note. They promise to give you gold if you go to their Federal Reserve Bank, which they do not do. You seen how the Europeans just discharge everything, right? So now let's go to discharge by cancellation. A person entitled to enforce an instrument with or without consideration, you just do whatever you want, may discharge the obligation of a party to pay the instrument by an intentional voluntary act, such as a render of the instrument to the party, discharge, quitclaim, destruction, mutilation, or cancellation of the instrument, cancellation or striking out the party's signature, or the addition of words to the instrument indicating discharge, release, cancellation, or by agreeing not to sue or otherwise renounce rights against the party by a signed record. Cancellation or striking out an endorsement pursuant to subsection A does not affect the status of the rights of the party derived from the endorsement as used in the section signed with respect to a record that is not a writing, includes the intent to or logical association with the record of the electronic symbol, sound, or process to which the record, or with the record with the present intent to adopt or accept the record. Does that make sense? Any questions? So in short, what is that saying? Let's look up what a person entitled to enforce means. Person entitled to enforce means the holder of the instrument, a non-holder in possession of the instrument who has the rights of a holder, or a person not in possession of the instrument who is entitled to enforce the instrument pursuant to subsection boom, boom, boom. So now I got to look at something else, right? A person may be a person entitled to enforce the instrument even though the person is not the owner of the instrument or is in wrongful possession of the instrument. Now we look up mortgage, doesn't say in equity you're considered the owner, right? Right? Yeah. Then, since this is our land, aren't we the grantor? Right? Then, even though Gina Raimondo didn't say she's the grantor, yeah. So wouldn't that mean she's a person entitled to discharge that?
Yeah. Oh. Got it.
Did I miss anything? Let me move my tassel real quick. Look. You see what the Europeans know in our land?
Yeah.
Any questions?
I just want to get close so I can say.
Yes.
Yeah, how we put it in practice, how we use this.
Yeah. That's where quitclaim comes into play. Great question. Yes.
I know, go ahead, because I'm about to get it.
Look up what quitclaim means. Quit. Q-U-I-T claim. That's the question you're going to read. Any questions before he goes into that? Any other questions on this? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
What's the process?
Of what?
The process of the quitclaim.
You know what a quitclaim is? All right, so you can't even ask that question.
Make them quit their claim on the land.
I'm just saying you can't ask what the process of something is if you don't know what the word itself means. You know what I'm saying?
Somebody asked.
I'm just saying you can't ask what the process of something is if you don't know what the word itself means. You know what I'm saying?
Somebody asks, is the straw a trading instrument for commerce globally?
Yes. What is a quitclaim? Quitclaim.
A relinquish of a claim.
Okay. And we'll read from the,
Quick claim. In conveyancing. Oh, quick claim deed.
oh, actually, quick claim is the quick claim deed.
Okay.
This one. Actually, just do it all three. Yeah, quick claim.
Quick claim is a verb in conveyancing to release or relinquish a claim. Execute a deed, a verb in conveyancing to release or relinquish a claim. Execute